Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Hey, we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. You're listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. I'm so glad that you're here because this show is going to be so fun and so interesting. I am getting an opportunity to speak with someone that, we haven't really done the whole face-to-face thing, but I feel like he is a good friend because he has educated me a lot in ufology, and he's close by. So if I ever get something to run up and share with him, and I've got to warn him about my telescope. But anyway, we have so many interests in common too, but I haven't really shown up on his doorstep yet. But Rich Hoffman is my guest, and he is a ufologist. He is also an IT guy, and he has been a consultant for the Department of Defense and U.S. Army for some time now, for a long time now. He is a senior systems engineer analyst at GGOT, I think I still said that wrong, Government Solutions. He is definitely a ufologist, and a darn fine one too. But he is a board member at the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, which is something that I just think is amazing, because if you have had a chance in all this promotion to go and look at that, you will really be impressed, I think, because I have been impressed since they started. It is a group that is, it's really just there to bring serious-minded individuals and organizations seeking the UAP, UFO phenomena in a scientific manner. And I'm going to tell you that a large number of them are PhDs, but it's not an absolute requirement to do that. I will tell you that my favorite guy with 3 of them, unless he's added more, was one of their speakers at their first conference, and that would be Travis. And I think that he is Travis Taylor. You've seen him on Ancient Aliens. You've seen him on a bunch of other shows, including Skinwalker Ranch. But primarily, I like him because he's just like Rich. He's just like me. He's just a person who, I got tickled, Rich, when we saw him on Skinwalker, that every time they go to get in the truck, you could tell he's an Alabama guy because he calls shotgun every time. And I think that's something that's unusual for a 3-time PhD. So that was funny. But he's very professional and he's very good, and he is a part of your group, isn't he? Or was he just presenting?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Kat. Yeah, he was just presenting because he is, of course, local and stuff like that. But he is a great guy. I enjoy working with Travis. He's just, he's that kind of like down-to-earth kind of smart dude.
Yeah. Well, when he was talking about driving the Mars rover, I was so tickled because he's like, and I got to take it 4-wheeling. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you did not just tell all of these people at AlienCon that you went 4-wheeling in the Mars rover. But, but that's just the level of intellect that you're interacting with. I mean,
yeah.
Your entire executive board, I don't even know how much experience, how many papers, how many white papers, how much time and effort between the 3 of you that you have built up. But you had Lou Elizondo, you had, of course, Robert Powell, you had, oh my gosh, Dr. Powell. Is it Dr. Comrade Powell? You had so many people there. And I loved it that one of the images that you had called it Meeting of the Minds. So.
Yep. Yeah, we basically started out originally with a number of us that were just in MUFON. And we were, like Robert Powell, for example, was the director of research for MUFON. I was the director of strategic projects as well as the state director for Alabama and Mississippi, and then we had Morgan Bell, who was a part of us, and then we had 2 other people that are very instrumental, Larry Cates and Carl Paulson, and these are, I mean, a great team. Carl, for example, his degree is in physics. And then you had Larry, he's got his BS in mathematics from Jacksonville University. Robert, of course, has a BS in chemistry, but also worked in the semiconductor industry for a long time. Morgan's got a BS in earth science, and I have a BA in organizational communication. But I've been working at Army Material Command for the last, I think it's like 26 years now. And so I've been in the IT world doing strategic planning for them. And now I'm actually doing an exciting thing where I'm actually, and you'll get a kick out of this, I'm called a spectrum manager for them, the headquarters. And what that amounts to is looking at frequencies that all things operate. And one of the projects that I'm working on is about the incursions into our military facilities by potentially drones.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of these that get reported as UFOs. And so we're actually implementing drone killers now. So we'll be able to knock them out of the sky. And I'm helping to do that at all of our AMC locations now and working with that team. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting now, that kind of work that I'm doing and helping them out in that regard. But it has kind of like this connection, if you would. I'm a drone pilot myself, and so it has a connection to, drones and the potential we have for, sabotage or something like that might be going on, and spying basically on us by, anybody on our DoD facilities. And there's been a lot of these things at nuclear sites as well. And so we're actually doing something about it, and we'll have the means to be able to go and identify where the operators are and go out after them if we want. And it's going to be interesting. But yeah, so that's my business side, if you would. That's what pays the bills.
That's a lot like your play side.
Yeah. So
best of both worlds.
Yeah. So that keeps me hopping at Army Material Command that I'm doing. But I mean, at the same time, I'm on the other side is I've got 56 years now, going to be, it'll be 57 in April with the UFO phenomena. And that pretty much has been a big interest of mine, as you very well know.
You're kidding, right?
No, not at all.
No interest there.
Just caught me at the age 13, and I've never given it up. So I'm one of those stubborn kind of guys that just keeps at it. And a lot of us that are in SCU have, by the way, have had years and have written books and have done a lot of scientific papers, and we're continuing to do that. We're doing studies right now, various projects looking at everything from USO sightings to looking at is there a relationship between UFO sightings and the sun in terms of its eruptions, CMAs. Somebody wanted to do a paper on that. We're looking at nuclear base incursions with UFO reports and that type thing. So there's a whole lot of like that kind of studies that we're doing right now that when you're doing science, it takes a while because you're actually, doing a lot of research and a lot of digging and verifying this and verifying that. And then you put maybe a paper together that gets peer reviewed, and then, after it gets peer reviewed, it potentially gets published. And
right.
So we're following the scientific method, and that's the way we want to do it. And we're encouraged by the fact that we're now over 100 people strong, and I think something like I heard the last number was about 25% of us are PhDs, and so we're getting more. And that whole notion about the invisible college that they talked about is becoming very visible now, and so we're getting known. We're pretty well respected from the standpoint of our approach, which I'm glad about, and. We've even got one side of us that are now looking at helping to make connections into the intelligence community. So we've got a team of people that are actually in the intelligence community that we're working with in the hopes that we can forge some sort of a relationship to be able to get either data or information that we could study. And so we're actually attempting to make connections even with the task force that's going on at the Pentagon.
Well, but you've already done some work relevant to the Tic Tac videos.
Yep, we did the Tic Tac video, at least the one that was out, the Nimitz case.
Mm-hmm.
We put together a 277-page paper that's up on our website that you can go read.
I did.
Look at. But it basically, I think we interviewed something like about 18 witnesses or secondary witnesses, or people on the ship, and even some of the pilots that were aboard the F-18 aircraft, and we were able to pull that together and did a lot of science with that. By the way, it was very exciting. In fact, the nice thing about it was, I don't know if you've heard of TTSA, but to the Stars Academy. Well, anyway, Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo helped us to take our paper and pass the paper up to people on the Hill. And then we've also sent our paper up to a lot of congressional leaders in the hopes that they would be able to get to it. So anyway, we're attempting to be able to get these papers on the subject passed forward to, critical leaders, if you would, that would help to be able to get us to focus on this phenomena. And what our hope is that, it's not just in the intelligence community and it's all clammed up. We want to be able to get it out to the general public as much as we can. And they have a right to know about this stuff. And so we're encouraged by that. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that's going on with us is we're pretty much making these inroads into connecting into scientists and scientific type people.
Well, I have a question for you relevant to the Nimitz group.
Yeah.
And that is that we know that the two pilots that we heard on the video who were quite taken aback by their experience were participating and actively engaged with those, with that, I guess it was that particular UAP. But ostensibly, there were a great number of those craft, and they were there observing the practice, what I can't remember what those are called, their games, for quite some time. So were there any other pilots? Is there any other footage from that activity? Or were those the only two pilots that you were given access to or that had the experience?
So let me clarify what happened on the day that Commander Fravor took off. Basically, what you had was they were starting an exercise, and there was a Marine Corps pilot who that was Commander Kurth, who was out positioned. He was going to be if you would, the enemy that the two other F-86s were going to go, or not F-86s, but the F-18s. That the other F-18s were going to go out and they were going to do this exercise and they were going to play combat, I guess, if you would. And so what you have is Commander Fravor and his WSO in the back seat. And then you have the other plane, he was the WSO. And then you have a female that was actually on her first mission, and she was the pilot of that one F-18. And then in the other aircraft, you have I think the Lieutenant Commander Slate was aboard that aircraft. And we talked with him, and we also had a chance to be able to get some of the interviews with we didn't actually have an interview directly with them, but we heard other interviews where they did talk. And so you actually have three of these people, actually four of them now, because even the female was on this show called Unidentified and talked about what she had seen. So you have evidence from at least four of these people. Now, Commander Kurth did not see the Tic Tac. What he saw was the object that was below the water.
Right.
And there was some sort of and so he did get to see that, but he never saw the Tic Tac. The Tic Tac was actually seen by the two F-18 pilots that were going to go out after him on that game. And they saw the Tic Tac from their perspective. And what you had was Commander Fravor, actually, they barreled down, if you would, to go after the Tic Tac. I'm thinking about it. Commander Fravor was not the Wizzo. I think he was actually flying it. It's been a while since I've read the information that we pulled together. But anyway, bottom line was that Commander Fravor goes into a dive after the Tic Tac. The Tic Tac then starts to come up and it recognized the fact that he was coming down after him. And then they start doing a circle. And as they circle around each other, then Commander Fravor cuts off the circle and says, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to go in a circle. I'm just going to cut it off. And he goes after where the object is. And the object recognizes that, apparently, and then you have it then shooting off, and it leaves his area and his site and ends up over at the what they call the cap point, which is over somewhere near the ship.
Okay,
And
I'm gonna stop you right there because we have to take a break. I'm so sorry, but we will be right back because I'm mesmerized. I love this stuff. So, everyone, this will be a short break, and we will be back. Y'all come back too.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I'm so glad you're here, and if you've listened to that first segment, you're so glad you're here too. I know you are. So we are talking with Rich Hoffman, he is just an excellent person, but he is also a board member with the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, as well as being an IT guy. He's worked as a Defense Department contractor, and he's worked as a consultant with the U.S. Army, so he knows his stuff, and he's been doing ufology for some time. Now, when we cut to break, I had to interrupt you, and I, again, apologize for that because I know that breaks your train of thought. But I think that, you know, where you were when you're talking about the interaction and, you know, they had come out of the rolls and the thing just, what everybody agreed on was the incredible speed.
Yeah, the object... You know, first off, that there seems to be an intelligence with the object. Number one, it noted that when Fravor was coming down to it, it responded. and it chose to respond to begin rising up in the air. And so then it's doing a circling kind of thing around Commander Fravor's aircraft, and they were doing a circle with each other. That shows a degree of intelligence. And then it gets up to a point where Commander Fravor then shoots across and decides he's not going to do the circle anymore, and he's going to go from like 9 o'clock directly across to 3 o'clock, right? So he makes a big cut and heads over and tries to get it, and the object recognizes that he was coming that way and decides then that it's going to go and shoot off and head over, and it goes to a place that's basically classified, and it's usually the cap. It's called the cap point, where it's and it's an area where the ship knows where the position is, he knows where the position is, and it's a very, very it's where you begin your engagement, and it's kind of like protecting boundary of the ship, if you would. Anyway, so bottom line was the object then goes directly to the cap point where he was then going to go. It's almost like saying, hi, come back to me,
Yes, come play.
So, yeah, let's come play. And then it shoots off and they don't see it anymore. And then it was another aircraft that takes off after Commander Fravor lands that finally has the camera capability to be able to now take and record the object and get that image. So it was yet another aircraft. It was not in the exercise that you're talking about with Commander Fravor and the Commander Kurth, if you would, going to be having their war game. And the other, because that these were exercises, they don't load them with live ammunition. And oh, by the way, they weren't set up with what they call the at-FLIR camera that they could have taken that encounter and recorded it. It wasn't until that other aircraft that takes off that has the at-FLIR on it that it was able to now go and record the object, where you see it as a kind of like an object that's sitting there, and they get a lock on it, and then it then shoots off to the side to the left at a very quick rate of speed. And while it looks slow on the screen, you have to understand that the object was about 20 miles away from that aircraft. And so when it shoots off the left, it's going at a pretty good clip, being 20 miles away. But anyway, so that's kind of like a little synopsis of that encounter. And it was a remarkable one. And there are, I got to tell you, Kat, I'm right now, if you look behind me, I've got like something over 1,000 books behind me, and these are all UFO books, and I've got articles on cases that are going back to even 1947 and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here going back through some of that stuff that I've got, and I'm reading about cases that are out there, and there are just as many remarkable cases that have been out there, with everything from radar encounters to jet pursuits to them attempting to go and shoot them out of the sky. And
that never goes well. That must be so frustrating.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't go well. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's such a huge history of encounters very much like this. And the exciting thing right now is that we got improved technology on board the aircraft to where we can actually get, more information, better data. We can see them. We can see the objects in other than visible ranges. We can look at them in infrared now. And that gives us some information that we don't normally have, because you're now looking at heat signatures. And you can say, well, wait a minute, this thing doesn't show any kind of a propulsion system on it. And remember I mentioned that the object, well, I don't know if I've said this on the air or not, but Lieutenant Colonel Commander Slate actually saw the object had some sort of a shimmering around the outer perimeter of the object, and he described it like a mirage, if you would. Well, those like little clues that you might not think about are very important to scientists. And so scientists can begin to, get more information, and we can study them. And, between all of the landings, if you would, that have happened with UFOs, where we got microwave radiation that we
Right.
detected, and soil that's been baked 2 feet in the ground. All these things add up to something, and then the question is, well, what do they add up to? And then you try to determine, well, is this something that is using what kind of like electromagnetic effects that you start to see that are associated with them, like power outages happening. In the case of the Tic Tac, the pilot that was going up that actually took the video image believed that his aircraft was being electronically jammed.
Right.
And so with that kind of thing, that's pretty interesting, because I think I mentioned early on what we're trying to do with those drones that are coming over our military bases is we're going to be using jammers on them. And so ultimately they're using jammers on us, and that means that they understand our frequencies that we're using, and having the means by which that they can jam that particular frequency, and that would indicate that they have either whatever this is and wherever they're from, that number one, they are intelligent. Number two, that they understand what a cap point is. That means that they must be monitoring our activity. And then thirdly, it means that they have the means by which that they can do the same things we do to them electronically.
Well,
So you put all that together, and then that's why, a lot of us are out here saying, well, are we dealing with, something from somewhere else? Or is this something that's maybe from somewhere else that's been here throughout our history, that understands us extremely well because they've been here? Are they really us, maybe from some sort of a, future time, if you would? Or
well, there's some interesting theories on that, though. But go ahead.
Well, or are they really, something that another country has maybe either got from, let's say, a crash might have happened in their country, and maybe they got wreckage of one of these things, and they've, jumped pace, and they have the means to do that. And that's why you'll hear so many, of the military, like, even Lou Elizondo, and other people say that, well, we can't give you a definitive answer yet because we haven't been able to get the back, the license plate on the back of the object,
right?
Which state it lives in, and so consequently, which one of those things is true? We don't know, and until we get evidence that suggests that we understand it, then we're going to be always guessing, and so scientists are not going to jump out there and say, well, they're aliens. Well, we have other things we have to rule out in order before we can get to that point, right? So anyway, that's the kind of things we struggle with. One of the speakers we had, we were going to have at the conference this year, which we had to cancel because of COVID, was Michael Masters.
Oh, that's one of the theories that I was going to talk to you about.
Yeah, and so Dr. Michael Masters, I mean, great guy. I love his work. And if you look at the hypothesis that he's bringing up, is that potentially that the beings are basically us, and they're us from potentially a future time, and at some point in the future, we figured out how to do something like warp space, or do something where we can actually now affect the time, the space-time continuum, and maybe get back into a different time period or whatever, through whatever means that would be. And obviously we don't know what it is yet because we aren't there, but that these would be potentially us from a future time. And if you take a look at the beings, number one, they have all these human characteristics like we do. They're bipedal like we are. They have two eyes. A lot of, not all UFO reports, by the way, are the same. I mean, you have like beings and things like that.
Right, different species, maybe.
In Kelly Hopkinsville, they had those little robots that they were shooting at all night. Back in the 50s.
Yes.
then you had the Pascagoula case where you had something that looked like, for gosh sakes, that looked
The
like
Atlas
a mummy.
Man.
Yeah, and the Atlas Man, and so you have a good variety. There's hairy little creatures. I was just reading today in Malaysia, in the 1970 and 80 time period, there were a lot of schools, for example, that were seeing very small UFO, and I'm talking about beings that would get out of them that were no bigger than 3 inches.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and 3 inches tall, and this is not at just one school. It seemed like it was happening at all the schools over a good length of time, where they would see these beings that are about 3 feet tall, or excuse me, 3 feet tall. I'm talking about 3 inches tall.
Right.
And they are 3 inches tall, and then some were like actually 6 inches tall, but generally about 3 inches tall, wearing little outfits, and they would actually try to go after it with their fingers or try to get one of them, and they would then get shot by some little device that they would have in their hand, and like they were lasered, if you would.
Oh my.
And then they would go away, and then a couple times I guess teachers actually saw them, and then they would get aboard these like little objects and shoot off in the air. And so if you think about that, and of course we always, in our human context, we think that every alien out there is going to look like us, and that's not necessarily true. But anyway, the thing that I'm trying to get at here was that that you have these beings that look, a good number of them, especially on the abduction cases, the ones that seem to be doing the medical exams and looking at us and checking us out. The ones that we allegedly think that they're doing hybridization and trying to create some sort of hybrid race. Well, maybe they're future travelers. They're us. They're coming back in time, and sometime in our future, we've got after we've basically have got to the point where we're like all inbreeding with each other, because we've already done that over the period of time. So maybe there's something that impacts our DNA or whatever like that, and they're coming back and basically trying to help them continue to live. And the fact that our heads are the way that they are, with our eyes looking straight out like we are, as opposed to when we were quadrupedal, and our necks were tilted back and looking at things, if you would. You see that with the aliens that are being reported as well.
You do.
And the fact that they seemingly understand us to some degree, they don't show a lot of like feelings or emotions, apparently, according to a lot of the abductees that have been on board. When they're being given medical exams, it's not like that there are these feelings of, I'm sorry, I'm doing this to you, but they do take away their pain a little bit occasionally. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that they seemingly understand our language, because they use mental telepathy, if you would, or something like that, to be able to communicate into our brain. And it's in English. And I'm sure that the abductions over in Russia, they're probably speaking in Russian. So when you think about that, they're able to talk our languages, or at least communicate with us. And so it would be no surprise that they would be able to either intercept our radio transmissions aboard aircraft or aboard ships or anything else. So,
well, the people that we send out into non-English speaking territories, whether it's in the Arabian states, the Middle Eastern states, or Russia, or back in the days of the Black Curtain, Iron Curtain, anywhere. Yeah, we've made sure that the people that were going to be filling those roles were linguists, and that they could develop the ability to speak absolutely perfect Russian or Bulgarian or whatever dialect, right? So it would stand to reason that if they're sending someone here, then they would be prepared as well. Or maybe they have things that they can implant that do that, because I just think that sounds cool, right? But I think that when we're talking about these creatures, because Michael, I sat down and got to spend some time with Michael in Phoenix, and I've interviewed him here as well. I loved his book. It's so interesting. But it was a good conversation because things that I really hadn't considered, like having damaged our DNA and they're coming back here to kind of get a do-over type thing. I mean, he didn't say do-over because he's an instructor, right? But basically trying to correct the issue. But that would explain the medical experiments and stuff too. But what is...
Yep, by all means.
We've got like 2.5 minutes before we go to break, so I don't want to get you off into anything that I'm going to have to interrupt you on again. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the hybrid comment that you made. I have seen, I've seen people at these conferences, and they weren't people that looked like they were going out of their way to be different or do something unusual, who actually had eyes that were slightly tilted in an unbelievable green, who, because I actually said, "Are you wearing contacts? Because your eyes are astounding." And she was like, "No, these are them. They're a little weird, right?" I was like, "No, they're beautiful," because they were. But, I've seen people who actually made me stop. Actually, I didn't stop on my own. The person I was with stopped and was talking to this woman and her mom because she was wheelchair bound. But it's interesting when you stop and think that there could be people who are hybrids who live among us. There could be people who are aliens who live among us. We don't know because we don't have the information about what makes them different, right?
That's correct. And I guess what I would say to you that, I mean, unless we did some sort of genetic testing on just about every human on the planet, we would have no way of knowing. And we don't have that means. And so, I'm not signing up necessarily to say that they are living among us, but I would have no means of being able to prove or disprove that. To me, it's like one of these things where if you look at the overall UFO phenomena, it's been with us throughout recorded history. It's been here.
Yes.
And with that being said, where are they if they have been here all along? And I keep coming back to the fact that we should be calling ourselves the planet water because we're not really the planet Earth. Three-quarters of the planet is water, and we know very little about that. And so what does that mean? What that means is something could be actually living or coming from the ocean that we have no idea about.
Which we have seen. That has been caught.
The objects have been reported coming out of water, moving underneath the water. So it's within reason that if you were going to come to this planet and you were wanting to just observe and do surveillance, the first thing you do would maybe to live underwater to be able to use that as your base and to pop up and go do your investigations, your surveillance, and for the humans who live on the land. And you can pretty much remain undetected by just doing that for the longest time.
Absolutely, but we're at break again. So we will be back, and y'all come back too because I am loving this conversation. We'll see you on the flip side.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am so pleased that you are here to join me with my guest, Rich Hoffman. And we have been discussing potential origins or hiding places where bases could be. And, you know, we were talking about USOs and things of that nature. And I have a friend who was actually on a ship, a Navy submarine. I don't think they call those ships, do they? But anyway, and he was describing a fast mover that went by, and the guy he was sitting by said, "Yes, sir, we have this." And there was some conversation about it. And meanwhile, my friend is nosy and interested, so he's like kind of leaning into that. But those fast movers, they are. They're very fast, even underwater. And I think it's interesting that that is the one place that we physically cannot find a way to explore. We can go to the moon. We're planning to go to Mars, but we cannot go to the depths of our own planet's oceans.
That's correct. And let me share with you. I know who you're talking about when you talk about the fast mover incident. But he's a very good friend of mine.
Okay.
But anyway, what I was going to mention to you that you have basically three kinds of, think about it like this, on the earth. What you've got water, and you have air. We breathe, and the atmosphere that we have up to a certain point where it then gets into space, right? There's three different mediums. And what we have seen throughout history are that the objects are able to do everything from, and travel, the same object is able to traverse those three different mediums.
Right.
Okay. And the same object. Now, if you think about it, we built our propulsion systems for each of those differently in each of those different areas. So in other words, I can't take a submarine and stick it up in the air and expect it to fly.
Truth.
I can't go put it in space and expect it to move around in space either. It might just float around or whatever like that, but it wouldn't have the means to do that. So obviously the propulsion systems are built for those kind of things, and that's how we do things. But these objects, they have no visible means of propulsion, are in all three of those kinds of things, and it's the same object. So it very clearly indicates that you've got objects that have the ability to be able to do that with a completely different technology than we know of, and the fact that you have, for example, the object like the Nimitz case, the object dropped from 20,000 feet and stopped before it hit the water or went into the water. It stopped and then reversed its course, and it did that in 0.78 seconds, not even one full second.
That's astounding.
And so if you think about that, and this is where you can compute the kinetic energy that would be in an object like that. You can look at the G-force, which was off the charts. The kinetic power would have been enough that it probably would have, the power alone was on the size of Hoover Dam, that kind of a power output, if you would. And it's an object that's only like maybe 13 feet tall and 45 or 46 feet wide. And so it's remarkable. And if you think about us dropping an aircraft at that kind of like speed, and then that kind of like G-force, it would break up, or people on the inside would be puddles because basically they couldn't stop. So, I mean, literally the inertia and everything else would have killed them. And so the plane would have broken up and everything else. But here's this object that's a tic-tac shape, which is not with wings like we build aircraft, and and
completely different.
And it doesn't break the sound barrier, and it's going through our atmosphere. It doesn't seem to heat up like it's going through our atmosphere. If you think about a meteor that's punching through our atmosphere, you see the huge trail that it leaves behind as it's burning up. If you look at the Columbia spacecraft when it was coming back after it had exploded in space and was coming in the atmosphere, I mean, it completely was burning up. There were huge trails that were, and this object was doing even greater speeds. So how is it that it can do that and function in space, water, and our atmosphere the same way? And that's what's really amazing, because USOs are also tracked at extremely high speeds. I remember one case where it was a naval exercise, and they detected an object that was going something like 356 knots underwater. That's pretty sizable speed. We haven't got anything like that. And these things are going in our atmosphere and in space at hypersonic speeds, which we're just now getting into hyperspace technology. In fact, we here at Redstone Arsenal, we've got an Army command that's actually focused on hypersonics.
Is that the new Space Command?
Well, no.
Space Force?
Well, Space Command is coming here to Huntsville now. We won the bid for its location, but Lockheed Martin and a number of other countries or companies are actually looking at what they call hypersonics, and that is building craft that are going at amazingly high speeds. The Russians are doing it, and we need to be able to, keep up with everybody else and look how we're going to compete against it. But anyway, so we have basically an organization here that's focused on hypersonics. It's the it's the Army Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office for Hypersonics and Directed Energy. So
easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's a new command that we have that's here. But anyway, so yeah, we're excited. We're growing up here and doing all these incredible things. And I think that, like I mentioned to you before about the concerns we have around military incursions and military facilities, we've got to be able to do something to even to protect those from these kinds of things. And so we as a nation have got to keep up with what everybody else is doing. And what we're finding is that now that we are seeing that they're openly looking at the UAP phenomena, we've now got to be concerned about, well, what is it? How are we going to capture more information? How are we going to use our technology to be able to do something with that? Do we need to reposition satellites to be able to see things, utilize satellite technology to do that? Do we need to, since the ATFLIR was able to keep and it readily, the Aegis system that we have aboard the ship was able to detect these objects, we need to be able to look at the Aegis system and some of the capabilities we've got that might help us now better detect these objects. And that's what's happening as well as we arm our aircraft with these very strong capabilities.
Well, I have a question about the Aegis. I mean, it's state of the art. It's the best we've got, right, at this point, or certainly when those ships were built. So but now whatever was playing with those interceptors knows that we can pick them up. Right. Yep. So I would assume, given the level of stealth that they have employed over the decades, that they'll just go home and make an adjustment, and the odds are that won't happen again.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, as we pointed out, if they are, monitoring our bases, if they're monitoring our exercises, if they're monitoring our capabilities, then certainly that's going to be the case. And I know that there are a lot of these, these exercises where UFOs are, even triangular shaped objects are being seen. I remember being the state director for Alabama, and I got a person who was on a live exercise in Mississippi who said that her and her other team member on this live exercise fire looked up and saw a triangular shaped object that was hovering above them. And I've heard of other military encounters like that where they're triangular shaped objects. And if you recall, there was just recently an announcement that one of the intelligence papers that there was a triangular shaped object that was apparently, filmed that was emerging from the water. And so now we're starting to see maybe change. There's always been a variety of shapes, by the way, with UFO reports, everything from spherical to disc shapes to, all these other kinds of shapes, if you would, and sizes to these things. I mentioned before that in Malaysia that you had objects that were like miniature, very small. And at the same time, you've had these objects like little balls about the size of a tennis ball that's able to come up next to a car and move around the car and stay with it as it's going 65 miles an hour down the road. And then and so you have that kind of thing going on as well, where there seems to be an intelligence behind it. So you have to look at the whole history of the UFO phenomena, and it's just replete with all these different kinds of things that are being experienced on the planet. And some of them have correlations to, in terms of the way that they look, the way that they maneuver. Most all the objects that don't make any sound, they can completely reverse their direction without any problem. Don't seem to be broken up by inertia, if you would. You also have objects that that leave certain kinds of markings on ground when they touch the soil. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's those little nuances that if somebody spent a lot of time, and this is where science has been lacking because they aren't participating for the longest time, the scientists would take data like that and would begin to look at it and see what they could deem from an intelligence standpoint and study it. And there's been so much, it's so bad of a stigma with science that they've been encouraged not to do it for the longest time. And that's why I'm so excited about what we're doing, because now we're starting to build, and we're getting a lot of great scientific minds that are wanting to be a part of us. And, so these are exciting times for me because, my God, the Pentagon has announced that UFOs exist. Oh, well, that's great. That's a change from my days working with the Blue Book team.
No doubt. I think everybody was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
And so excited because, look, there actually is something happening, and they're having to say it. I just knew y'all were Snoopy dancing around your desks.
Yep. So the fact that that's coming out in the open and now it's getting some degree of respectability.
Yes.
And you had Marco Rubio put that bill in to create the Intelligence Authorization Act of 2021 to be able to now get this Pentagon task force stood up.
Yes.
I'm excited about the 180-day feedback we're going to get from them. And
do you think that's, well, I can't ask you that yet because we're about to go to break, but I want to talk about that when we come back too. But yeah, there's a lot that has the potential to blow this conversation open. And I do like that Rubio said it has to be unclassified.
Yes.
It cannot have top secret information in it, so they have no reason to not share it. But
well, what I understand, there will be both classified and a unclassified version.
Yes,
so,
but they have to be hand in hand. I mean, there's some things that have to stay quiet, but
right.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot in there that really didn't have to. But well, we'll talk about that. I am so excited that you're excited about that too. But we are at the top of the hour, which is our news break. And, you know me, I'm always looking for a little bit of good news in there. I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to find some at some point in this year. So thank y'all so much for being here. Be sure you come back. We are having so much fun with this conversation. My guest is Rich Hoffman, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. The U.S. has surpassed 25 million confirmed cases of the coronavirus since the pandemic began, with more than 418,000 deaths from COVID-19. This according to data from Johns Hopkins University. This also as the vaccine distribution around the country hits a number of snags. White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain says there was no distribution plan in place from the Trump administration as the virus raged around the country. Klain says that will change under President Biden.
One of the first orders the president signed was using his legal authority under the Defense Production Act to mandate the production of more syringes that could extract more doses out of the existing vaccine vials.
Speaking there on NBC's Meet the Press. And while the number of new cases in the U.S. has shown signs of slowing recently, the U.S. still leads the world in the number of infections and deaths from COVID-19 and accounts for roughly 1 of every 4 cases reported worldwide and 1 of every 5 deaths. India has recorded the second most cases with more than 10 million infections. Hundreds of people protested in the Netherlands against the government's latest coronavirus restrictions. Terry Schultz reports the demonstrations came after the Dutch implemented their first evening curfew since the pandemic began.
Police used water cannons and shot tear gas at protesters who'd been forbidden from gathering in Amsterdam and Eindhoven. Demonstrators could be seen throwing fireworks at police who were dressed in riot gear. In Eindhoven, shops were plundered and rail traffic was stopped. On Saturday, anti-lockdown protesters burned down a coronavirus testing facility in the coastal city of Urk. Authorities say nationwide they issued fines to more than 3,600 people for breaking the new curfew that goes from 9 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz.
3 more Texans have been charged for their involvement in the attack on the U.S. Capitol this month, including a man accused of making online threats against Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Texas Public Radio's Jerry Clayton has more.
According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 34-year-old Garrett Miller of Richardson was arrested last week and is now facing charges in U.S. District Court. He appeared before a judge Friday. Miller posted several images and videos of himself inside the Capitol building during the siege. Investigators also found he called for the execution of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter. A hearing scheduled for Miller on Monday. He's one of about 120 people so far who've been charged in connection with the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol building. I'm Jerry Clayton in San Antonio.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to the Super Bowl after beating Green Bay today, 31-26. They will play the winner of tonight's game between defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Buffalo Bills. The score at last check, 21-9 Chiefs in the second. Super Bowl 55 will be played in Tampa Bay. You're listening to NPR News. In Chicago, the teachers' union voted to defy the school district's demand that they report to school buildings tomorrow ahead of planned in-person school for grades K through 8 that would start on February 1st. The country's third biggest school district says it's agreeing to a demand from the teachers' union to push back teacher prep time in the buildings to Wednesday to allow those talks to continue. Teachers are upset over a lack of vaccines and a lack of supplies to keep the schools safe in the pandemic. Crews in China have rescued 11 miners trapped in a collapsed gold mine for 2 weeks. Mining accidents have decreased in recent years, but occasional accidents still kill dozens of miners every year. NPR's Emily Fang has more from Beijing.
The fate of 11 miners trapped underground in China's northern Shandong province had been uncertain for 2 weeks. On January 10th, an explosion buried 22 miners in the gold mine. Mine managers then failed to report the incident for a full 24 hours and are now in detention. Rescue workers managed to reach 11 of the miners and keep them alive for 2 weeks before they were lifted to the surface. They were not able to reach the other 11 miners who are presumed dead. Emily Fang, NPR News, Beijing.
In Wyoming, wildlife biologists say a 34-year-old grizzly bear captured in the southwestern part of the state is the oldest on record in the Yellowstone region. The bear was captured last summer after preying on cattle and was euthanized. Officials say the bear had lost hundreds of pounds and would continue to prey on cattle as a reason for the euthanization. Asia markets are trading higher at this hour. The Nikkei in Japan is up 0.2%. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I'm going to tell you, we have new issues out. We have shirts, we have all kinds of things. If you are missing an episode from your collection, you can probably get it. Our editor and owner, Phyllis Galdi, has all kinds of wonderful knowledge. She can put her hands on something. I had a guest on who had submitted a story years ago that she was under the impression was never published. When I talked to Phyllis about it after the show, I was like, so I just thought that was a great story. And she was like, well, it is a great story because we published that. I'll get her snail mail and I will send her a copy of the magazine she was in. So she actually sent her two, one to, share with people and one to put up for posterity because that's the kind of woman she is. But, if you're looking for something specific, she'll probably find it for you. She's brilliant. So, but anyway, the shirts are fab. I have one. It is the second best t-shirt that I've ever owned. And actually, for me, it's the best one because it's my show, too. But as far as the cotton, it's awesome. So, that being said, go ahead. And if your subscription has expired, we won't tell anybody. You can just renew. And we'll start getting them to you. So I am glad to be able to welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio, Rich Hoffman. Rich is a board member of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. He is a longtime defense contractor, consultant as well with the U.S. Army. And I am so glad that you are here, Rich.
Oh, I'm glad to be on with you. I missed chatting with you, and we are friends on Facebook. And it warms my heart when we get a chance to get together. I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Keeping tabs with you, and the other interesting thing is, Fate Magazine and I have a long-time relationship as well. I just want to point that out to you. I have got a huge collection of Fate Magazine articles on UFOs. It's
yes, you do.
All these old issues that I've got, that go back and wow. I mean, I certainly don't have the full collection of 70 years, but I do have a full number. I have a very good number of those things, and there's a lot of history, from all of the key people in UFO history, if you would, that have been in magazines, and so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to know something funny? Is that when I first started doing this show, I was having people on that I found interesting. I know a lot of them from meeting them at different conferences and stuff, whether ufology or, cryptozoology, whatever, that weren't at that time. Well, actually, ufology has been in my wheelhouse for a while, but I don't really know that much about cryptids, so I started talking to people. And almost to a person, they had submitted and been published in Fate. Isn't that funny?
Yep.
I mean, it was just like, oh, wow. Yep. And all of them would say, well, you know, I was in Fate. I had an article published in Fate. I'm like, did you? So I started going back and going through the authors of the different articles, and I was like, it looks like I had gone through just capping people. So it was neat. I liked that, and I liked that they were so excited too. It's a great magazine.
Oh, it is. It is. It's got excellent. If you want to know about anything strange and mysterious in this world,
absolutely.
Fate covered it, and they did a great job with the UFO phenomena. I thought, it's got a lot of really good stuff. So yeah, it's really really interesting. I have this like 56-year perspective of the phenomena that a lot of people haven't had that long, but I have, and I've seen it all, heard it all, and there you go. I mean, and I've got even like I think I mentioned to you, I've got like old newspaper clippings. I got like a lot of other magazines and books and things like that that go way back. But it's pretty interesting to dig them out every now and then, and I say, well, let's go back and look at some of the old stuff here, and it's pretty interesting reading.
Well, it is. I go back through online editions and stuff, but I love going back and reading the things. And the second show, I may not be right, but one of my early shows was relevant to the Flatwoods Monster. And I wasn't really buying into monsters at that time, right? So, because I had so many people tell me their experiences and stuff, but then they would never have anything to follow up with. And that led me to, I do have a healthy level of skepticism. So I'm not quite, a Missouri native from the Show Me state, but I'm pretty close. Okay. I like documentation. Some things you just simply can't. And so as I started doing that, because with my research as a paranormal researcher, if I couldn't document it, I just disregarded it.
Yeah.
And because I was the person getting my own evidence. But it's interesting that some of these things are so anomalous that you almost have to go on legend. And they're so old, too, because they've happened for so long, such as UFOs, such as different monsters in the mayhem. You just kind of have to go with legend for a while until the technology evolved to be able to get your evidence, such as with the UFOs.
Right.
UAPs.
Yeah, and so even right now, I think we're getting to the point where, like, cell phones, for example, are huge technologies that each of us walk around with. And we have the ability to be able on these smartphones to take, and the cameras are continuing to get better and better and better and help even in low light conditions. And there's a number of apps that I talk about all the time, which would be helpful if we could use those for UFO actual cases. And that's one of the things I'll be talking about at the conference, by the way, in June. But anyway, what I was going to try and say was that we have the technology right now where it's continuing to improve on not only on our personal selves, but as I mentioned before about like the cameras that we've got aboard aircraft and some other things. And so I think it's going to be this is going to be the age of data. For UFO data, and that we're going to start to get all this, everything from acoustic data to sensory data in different kinds of things like like the infrared cameras and that type of thing, that we'll be able to now actually get a better understanding of these objects over the past with the box brownie cameras.
Oh yeah.
People just telling their stories. And so I think I mentioned to you that I'm going to be on Science Channel in October.
Indeed.
And one of the things I was going to say on that was that I've got like about 10 different, I want to say cases, if you would, that I'm going to be talking. I'll be talking about. You'll see me talk on that series. But a lot of them are based on videos of really strange kinds of things. Not even just all UFOs. It's strange kinds of things that people say. But because I've investigated UFOs, that I've got a good sense about, how do you investigate and how do you be skeptical and objective and everything else when you're doing this and look at it from a scientific standpoint. And so I'll be able to help that. But a lot of the cameras that they were used are the surveillance cameras. And some of those things only, record at like 1 frame per second, or 10 frames per second. And
right.
So you'll see some kind of ghost-like images of something out there, and it turns out that it's, you're seeing a blur from some person walking by, and you can't really make it out. A lot of those things are treated as ghosts, and those surveillance and close counter, those CCTVs and various other things that are, capturing things. You don't see the whole motion, if you would, of an object. You see only those little bits and pieces when you get 1 frame, or like, if you blinked your eyes and then opened it after a period of time, that's all you could see, and then shut it again. But anyway, so that's the kind of thing that we're seeing, a lot of strange things like that I'll be commenting on and see how
I can't wait.
Yep.
You're so personable and you're so knowledgeable. Your background is astounding. I am surprised it has taken them this long to find you, because if you read through some of the things that you have done, it's you're pretty astounding. So I think that's going to be awesome for you.
To be honest with you, I don't look at myself as being very astounding, but
that's part of it.
I appreciate that you do, but I see a lot of younger people that are now picking up on this subject, and I'm just excited as all get out, because I think they're going to do even greater things with it than I could.
Well, they have that enthusiasm, but they also have better tools at this point in their lives, because just think if you had started with the technology that we have now.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I recall the fact that when I was doing case investigations for UFO sightings, I was going out with a notepad, a pencil, and some coloring things to be able to let people draw what they saw, and a form that I had to fill out, and not much in the way of tools. Eventually we were able to get into having something like a tape recorder, but it was, initially I was like dealing with reel to reel, and you can't take that out.
No, that's a little bulky.
Then it was cassette recording, and you could get a cassette and record things. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the technology just wasn't there. I mean, we didn't get computers until much, much later. And so that's why, I think that from here on out, I think it's going to be absolutely incredible, that technology. And I'm just so thrilled that there's still this strong interest and this seriousness about the subject, that I'm hoping that we'll even learn more.
I hope so too. There's so many experiencers out there for various things. I personally know 2 women who swear to goodness that they were impregnated and their child taken, the empty womb syndrome. And those 2 women have both, and one never offered the information I asked after meeting the other, but have seen or interacted with the child that they think is theirs.
Yep.
That doesn't, it's just bizarre. If you're If you're somebody just walking in to a place and you hear that, it's like, really? But if you see the image, see the face and the pain and the fact that they completely believe in it, then it's like, I'm really a good judge of people. And I was like, really? It's a very different experience than people consider to be a normal UFO UAP interaction. Believe it or not, we've got to take a break. So I can't believe we've gone through that time frame. But we'll be right back, and y'all come back too. You too, Rich.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am so glad you're here because this is a great show. Rich Hoffman is just a really good person. He's a great source of information. If you are not already following the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, then if this is a subject that interests you, you should be, because they are very analytical. The people who are the board members as well as the general members are all fascinated with this topic. They can talk about it for days, and I think that it's probably one of the best groups I've found yet for having straightforward, this is it, this is the information, this is what we know, we're not really into conjecture, so we're going to go with this. I think that's cool. Rich, I think you do a great job with that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we got a great team. Let me tell you.
You do.
I'm surrounded by brain matter.
Well, it's totally a brain trust. I mean,
it is, and I think for the most part, I mean, we just have some really great people that are on board that are doing some fabulous stuff, and I'm just so proud of every one of them. I think that we're going to do some great things with this subject, and I'm excited about the fact that we can now have conversations and about the subject, and people not run out of the room going, "Oh my God, they're talking about that crazy stuff again."
Exactly.
And so the credibility's been reestablished, if you would, from the days of Project Blue Book, and it's now with the government now back into it and openly admitting it that they're looking into it. That's broken open a lot of doors, and I think that now it's being a little different generation, and now people are a little bit more open to it, and so it's going to get some serious treatment. So I'm very excited.
Well, we were going to talk about the 180-day period has already begun for that report to be complete.
Yep.
So, and the report that we're discussing is the one that was mandated. Cruz Rubio started the call, put it forward to get back to Congress a report of what's been going on in ufology basically since Roswell, I think. And they are not there's to be a declassified, unclassified, but they have to have unclassified information that is able to be released to the public. They are not to put anything in that one that we can't know. So that's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be like throwing a bone to the dog, but that's okay because Congress is going to get the classified version, or you said that, right? They can have classified information in theirs.
Yeah. So, I mean, Marco Rubio, of course, is, involved in the Intelligence Committee.
Yes.
And so the Senate Intelligence Committee. And so there will be things that they could talk about, which, might involve some things that are sensitive and classified. We just don't want to be able to have out. So there will be, a good part of it that will probably cover some of that classified information and that we'll just not see. But at the same time, the intent was to be able to get as much of the unclassed kind of information out there. And so that's good. And that's the way it ought to be. The American public needs to know something about what's going on, and we need to trust our government, right? And a lot of
tough.
Yeah. And so I think that, it makes sense that it's got the two versions, the classified and the unclassified. And, working in the DOD, I've got a greater appreciation of the fact that we're just giving away way too much information to all of our enemies. But
I know, right?
I mean, yeah. So we need to be tight-lipped where we need to be, and everybody's listening to us. We're getting pummeled with, attacks every day and every second, the DOD by other governments. And so, people need to be aware that there's reasons for this secrecy, if you would. And it's not because they're not wanting to tell it, but it's just that we don't want to tell the other countries.
Well, we strike at dawn would be one of them, right? So, one of my friends laughs at me because I'm always like, tomorrow we ride when we're talking about doing stuff. And that's one thing you don't really want. If you were a government, you don't want people to know that. But sure. I'm looking forward to it too. I'm very excited. I hope that they are not just doing a nominal pat on the head in the public report, because I would be so disappointed.
Yeah, and one of the concerns you have to look at is that, for example, let me put it to you this way.
Okay.
If you read those statements from the Pentagon that are coming out. They're talking about there's concerns about UAP that are at our military installations and on our exercise ranges and all this other wonderful stuff, right?
Right.
And remember back when I was talking about with you that and words do matter, by the way.
Yes.
But when you talk about UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, well, then you read and you find out that they talk about things that were originally called UAP, but they've since learned are drones, for example.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So
I do.
What I'm trying to do is that there's a careful play on words, if you would, that's going on, where there are UAP that we know of, but when they talk about these incursions into our ranges, the vast majority of these things are those kind of like small drones that I'm talking about. And so they're going to be looking at it from a threat standpoint. And guess what? From a threat standpoint, having drones coming over a facility and capturing images of things is just as much of a concern.
Absolutely,
so
it is.
I guess what I'm trying to tell you is we've had UFOs that have come over military bases. I mean, UFOs that I'm talking about the typical strange objects, the disc-shaped, that are clearly not drones.
Right.
But a lot of the Pentagon people and the people at the DOD are thinking when they see that word UAP, they think of it as drones. Okay? So I'm just throwing caution to the wind that don't be surprised if when they're talking about it, that they come back and tell you, well, the vast majority of these things are small drones that people are flying and stuff like that. And you don't hear a lot about the objects that you and I have been studying for a long, long time.
Well, the problem with that is going to be that if they try to say that everything since Roswell that was interfering, like at Minot, was a drone, they're going to lose all credibility.
And what I'm going to say to you is we don't know what their period of study is or what we don't know if they are looking back at Roswell. We don't know if they're looking back anything further than just within the last few years. And we don't know if they're just looking at the recent cases, like maybe the Nimitz, the Roosevelt case, some of the recent pilot kinds of things that are going on. We don't know what they're studying and to the extent that they're going to be able to do that. It won't be probably a full history look. They might mention a few things that are going on, but we don't know the extent of that. And so I'm saying...
They get to set the parameters, though, right?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And we don't know how that parameter is going to shape out. And my guess, and I'm just coming back and telling you, that there are a lot of drones that are seen. I'm talking about the ones I've got, like the Phantom DJI kind of like thing, the small drones or whatever like that, that are also being sighted around or over or are sensitive locations.
Right.
And so don't be surprised when you read the report, they come back and say, well, we believe it was a drone, da, 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 da. And it's not going to come out and say it's an alien spacecraft. So I'm just telling you that that's what I suspect that after 180 days, we're going to see that there are, like the Tic Tac objects, which are clearly not drones. We have no idea where in the heck that they're coming from. And we need to be sensitive to the fact that we know that potentially that our military, other militaries around the planet are all engaging in all kinds of strange things and tests and various other things that, hey, look, that could account for some of these things.
I have a question relevant to that.
Go ahead, because I'm going to point out to you that not every military case that you have sightings is even after you investigate it, you could find out very readily that it was a balloon. You could find out very readily because they misidentify like everybody else does. They can do that. if you saw the one object that was being captured by the pilot who saw it, and it looked like this strange, like shaped object, if you would, that was up near the aircraft, and some people were suspecting that it was a balloon. Well, I mean, there are a lot of balloons. We're constantly sending out balloons, and
That is true.
We're sending out balloons of different designs and different purposes. We got dirigibles and blimps and things like that that are unusual shape that are being sent up by everybody and their brother. You've got going back to even the 1946 time frame when, Japanese were sending over little, balloons to come across parts of the United States. And so they're doing that in other areas as well, where there's a lot of balloon activity. So it's not surprising that a pilot could be up in the atmosphere and see a balloon that's going to be looking rather odd, that's going to go by, whizzing by his aircraft. So we have to be aware of the fact that, the greatest preponderance of cases we have with UFO sightings typically get explained.
Well, yes.
And it's also the fact true that the good number of these things are just because Americans just don't, and citizens just don't spend a lot of time looking up and studying what's up in the atmosphere that right now. I mean, they don't know, about a lot of the natural things we got up here. And there's a lot of UFO investigators that I've dealt with over the years who are not spending enough time studying all of the things that we call IFOs out there.
Yes.
And
that is true. Because
you need half the books in my room should be, I mean, a lot of them are, but on science and the IFO equation, because unless you start to understand how a spider web could be reported as something like angel hair, or you start to understand what an auroral display like sprites are, you might interpret that to be something else. Then you're not doing your proper investigation.
You're right.
And so we have to, as investigators, you have to understand everything that's up in the sky that could be misconstrued, looked at, or whatever. At the same time, you've got to understand the human condition, because humans, a lot of times will see something and they forget about things. They also, a lot of them, how often do we ask them, do you have a vision problem? How often do we ask them, were you on, using any kind of medications when you saw something? How often do we talk about psychological problems they might have and the impacts that might have on them observing something? And we don't do that. And so
you don't do it in paranormal investigations. You don't do it in ufology investigations. I doubt they do it in cryptid investigations. I mean, It's just not done because it's time consuming to do it right.
Correct.
And everybody wants to be done in 2 hours. And the second thing is that it could eradicate the case that you're looking at. And I think that people are very protective of what they want to believe when they go out to do any kind of investigation.
I agree. And a lot of times you as you very well know, you can have this bias that you bring into the equation, and your own personal bias becomes, an impact to whatever you're looking at. And you have to, with science, you have to follow the data, and you have to see where the data is going to take you. You can't be trying to bring in your own bias and, setting the parameters so that, you can confirm what you already believe in. You have to find out.
Well, you're right. But by the same token, you have the people who have a vested interest in keeping the public calm and at peace, setting the parameters for a report they would never have done willingly.
Correct.
So you have to approach that with a grain of salt, too. But I have to ask you a question.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Because you are, you're talking drones. I know that you're an audio video analyzer as well. You've done that for years, if only for yourself for a long time. And then, you're great at that. All of the different things that are reported over Fukushima, are those all drones?
You're talking about the things around Fukushima?
Like the flying objects that have been reported around Fukushima. Are those all drones, or there's some unexplained, or?
To be honest with you, I have not investigated or seen videos from Fukushima.
Darn,
So,
I wish that was something you were working on.
Yeah, so if you're aware of something like that you want me to look at, I can take a look at it. I just don't have that. Let me put it to you this way. There are sightings probably every minute of every day that are going on, and
probably many of them,
and around the planet. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm not aware of all of the things that are going on, and I'm pretty selective about focusing on certain things, that look like that they might be highly credible. I will say this much, that, would it make sense that you would have drones around Fukushima? Yes.
Absolutely.
Because you would not be, you're wanting to be able to see in a highly radioactive area what the radiation levels might be, and you might use a drone to be able to do that. So to me, logic would tell me that there would be a lot of drones around Fukushima, but I have not seen anything that I can't begin to tell you yet, because I really haven't looked at that.
I'll find some of them and shoot you a couple of them. But the reason that I ask is because I keep hearing so many reports, and I do know that they have been traditionally reported around nuclear facilities, nuclear incidents possibly. And, I feel like Fukushima, unless something happens, could be an extinction event for,
I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that it could be a mixture of both, but I have no idea at this point.
Cool.
And, you'd have to sort out the two things. We're looking at cases around nuclear production plants. We're looking at UFOs around storage facilities. We're looking at UFOs around even nuclear exercises out in Las Vegas and in that area back in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
There were UFOs in the atolls. And so, there's a tremendous number of these cases out there. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, until you actually investigate, you don't know which of those versions are going on here. And I haven't seen any of them. So,
okay. Well, I will get them to you, and then we can talk about that with you having everything you need. Because I understand not being able to ascertain if you haven't seen any. That would be just a shot in the dark, and you don't do that.
No, I tend to try to not to do that.
I think you're great at not doing that, because I don't know why I assumed that you had. I must have read something and it was someone else, and someone else's posted, not yours. I thought it was yours. But I'll get it for you, because I'm interested in that, because I'm interested in why they're so prevalent even before drones per se around nuclear facilities. So,
well, I think I can address that if you'd like to hear my speculation on it.
Can you do it in 20 seconds, or do you want to do it after break?
Let's do it after the break.
That's what I thought. I want a good one. We will be right back. We're going to take it a little early so that we can get back to that. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am so glad that you're here. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and this is our final segment. So if you have any questions, you need to get them into the chat. I promise I will see them. I have got to hear your premise on this because, I totally feel like I sandbagged you. I didn't mean to. I apologize if it felt like that to you. But about the situation, you said you had insight.
Yeah. So let me go. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier. That if these objects are popping up and they've been around us for a long time, and it seems like that if you want to go with the common belief that that 1947 was significant with Kenneth Arnold sighting. Well, and then you realize that, wait a minute, I'm telling you that they've been throughout our history, in written form and one another, that was not necessarily the first time, but it seemed like that we got a lot of those sightings that were popping up around that early time period. Well, you take a look at, and then we've mentioned about the fact that there's, all these nuclear kinds of sites, everything from storage facilities to production areas to even our missiles in silos, and they've done that in not just the United States, but in other countries as well. And then I mentioned to you about the fact that, you've had objects kind of observing those detonations out in the atolls. Well, you put that in the context that we already talked about, and that is that, the objects seem to be coming in and out of water, right? And that most of the planet is Earth. Is water. I mean, not Earth. And, you start blowing things up with nuclear detonations in the ocean. Well, you could be just shaking up their house a little bit.
A bit.
And then you could be concerned a little bit about the overall path that you're taking on the planet by detonating these kinds of, weapons and all, and I'm sure that they've observed all of our, our ruthlessness, if you would. Wouldn't you be a little bit concerned about that and maybe wanting to check in on it? And so that's what you have going on, is this checking in on all these things, seeing how we're going, and trying to send us a subtle message that, oh, by the way, in Malmstrom, when I can deactivate 16 missiles in a silo, I'm trying to send you a message. I'm trying to send you a message here that you don't need to be playing with this stuff. And then I go over to Russia. And one of the and Russia, there was that Russian case where actually it activated their system and then it deactivated it afterward. Well, maybe that was sending a message. And we've had, these wonderful messages for a long time. Well, then let's talk about it from the standpoint that we just mentioned, where it seems like that they know a lot about us. And that they show a great degree of intelligence as they're maneuvering around our planet. I mentioned to you that they're practically speaking our language, that they know about our cap points on board military vehicles and craft, and they seem to be wanting to come over military facilities. All that suggests the fact that they are potentially, wanting to maybe stop us from doing something or influence us from not, doing something or whatever. And wouldn't that be very human-like? And wouldn't that be what you would be concerned as a future species? coming back to be able to stop our activity or influence us to stop doing that kind of thing because it has impacts that are larger than us.
Absolutely.
Larger than us. And I guess what I try to say is you're sitting back looking at this from the 95,000 foot ceiling, and you're trying to understand what's going on. That's kind of makes sense. And then you also let's throw in the abduction cases where abductees that are claiming that they're being shown on some sort of like a television screen that's not like a television screen, but it's a television screen, and they're watching. They're seeing some sort of destruction happening that looks like on the planet Earth. And then you get, the Ariel school incident where students are outside and they see this object come down to the school ground and the being comes out of it. And he's basically, indicating that we're harming the planet.
Right.
Okay. Put all that together and what do you get?
You get us.
You get us trying to warn ourselves the fact that we're about ready to do something pretty doggone stupid and a little bit concerned about the planet that we live on, that we should be caring for, because if they really are just us coming back, and let's just assume that, that there are other craft from other explanations as well. But I mean, but let's focus on that potentially, they want to be able to live in the future.
Right. They don't want it devastated.
Correct. And that we should really care for the planet and send that message. And so
you'd think they would do something with all those excavators in Brazil.
Yeah. So
as well.
There you go.
That's a pretty good premise.
It's just, when you sit back, humans, what we have a tendency to do is try to put patterns together and things we see and things we experience. And that's me just trying to assemble in my brain something that could possibly make any logical sense about this whole mystery of this phenomenon. And I just, it smacks of sounding too legit. And it's based by the fact that you have all these different kinds of these pieces of evidence that could potentially show that that's a very plausible hypothesis. So anyway,
you could even say strange evidence.
Yeah, I could. Which is that great show that I'll be on in October. So anyway.
I'm so excited for you. I can't wait for that. But I have to ask you the question, and I'm not sure exactly where she's going with this,
Okay.
But the question is, what is your opinion on the Ancient Alien show? She likes it, but was wondering what your thoughts were.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I mean, recorded history, and there's a lot of things around the planet that look kind of odd. And oddly enough, we don't have. It's not like these ancient civilizations and things like that left us manuals that we could take a look at and said, well, here's how you build a pyramid,
Right.
Or here's how you build this, or here's how you do that. It seems to be that there are a lot of these things around the planet that are made out of stone. I mean, there are cases of, of incredible things that have been carved out of ground and rock and various other things. I've seen some of these things, and I'm going like, wow, that's impressive stuff. And could that have been possibly done by some indigenous group and, tribal in many respects? And what it tells me is that we had many, many, call them centuries or whatever like that, of doing things on this planet where we learned a lot of things. And it's very clear that we've also lost a lot of the things that we've learned.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if you look at just the information in the library in Alexandria, Egypt, from the fire, could you imagine what would be in that library? I mean, and the knowledge that we've lost from that.
Yes.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is the show tries to capture a lot of that stuff, the Ancient Alien show, and it's all right, but I'm a little bit cautious about the immediate jump to, well, it's alien. It's and I'm saying, well, that's calling humans pretty stupid, and I don't agree with that. And I think that they're pretty smart, and especially smart.
Well, and innovative.
And innovative, and that's that in and of itself should not be dismissed so easily. And so I kind of like moved away from that show, if you would, myself. But I respect some of the people that are now trying to bring it back and put it in place. I just don't buy that everything has to be necessarily aliens that they're pointing to, and I would just warn them to be a little bit more cautious in making these assertions. I just think that humans do have some great intellect and are capable of doing that and making some of these things, and they did it for reasons, and the reasons might have. I mean, it's like people always show me these drawings, and like can I interpret somebody else's drawing? And I don't do that well with even preschoolers when I
That's true.
And a lot of people are drawing, UFO things that they saw, and it may not accurately depict what it was that they actually saw, and they're just horrible drawers. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't go on the basis of just because that thing that's on that cave wall looks like a UFO now, that's what that was back then. And so I'm a little bit cautious about that. But there are a lot of mysteries out there. There could be some explanations about some of these things could be UFOs in these drawings and certainly that's plausible. We have photographs with UFOs in them. Why not people drawing them?
Well, we have Renaissance paintings.
But it's me interpreting 3,000-year-old art is going to be a little bit tough, and I that's like
no doubt.
I understand what was in that person's brain when they did it.
I have trouble with modern art more so than that, but a little of both.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's my take. That's my take on Ancient Aliens. I guess that's what you're getting at.
Well, it is. I mean, you have the man purse that looks like the thing that Ray Bradbury used for the doctors, and there's all, and so obviously Bradbury had downloads to get to that. Well, I don't doubt that some people do get those, because how did Mozart do what he did? Right? But I do think that was it possible that Bradbury went to Egypt at some point in his life? I don't know. I've not researched him well enough to have an opinion on that. But it's all good. You just have to decide that it's not fact until you research it yourself.
Yep.
But it's a good way to put you on a research path and to get people's interest in ancient history, because goodness knows we're not taught that anymore. So there's so much. And I think that you do an excellent job of trying to get to all the places to see all the things. That's one of the things I admire most about you is your adventuresome spirit. And
thank you.
I think that helps a lot to keep you balanced. And it's fun, right? I never see y'all with anything but smiles and laughter when y'all are out doing things. So, and being willing and wanting to get into the local flair with things. I think that the lederhosen were interesting. I thought that was cool. I love that about you. So, And you have to tell me later about the circle because we're out of time. But she says that she loves Giorgio's hair, though. That's what got him the job, right? Was the hair.
Gotta be. Yeah,
And
I'm sure of that.
Yeah, that's what Kevin said. Kevin Burns, the director, said that when he saw Giorgio's image, that he was like, yeah, bring me the guy with the hair. And then he insured it. So it helps, right? And if he wants to go, unrecognized, he wears a hat. Smart guy. But we are out of time. I cannot believe we're out of time. I have had so much fun with you. We are not going to wait a whole year before you come back.
Well, that's good because I do enjoy our time, and it's amazing how the time flies when you're talking to you. It flies exponentially.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great, though. I love it.
I do too.
I love you, dear. You're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You are too. I can't wait to see you all over my TV. I can't believe you're going to be on my husband's favorite show. So,
okay.
That's great.
Yep, it'll be October 17th is when it's supposed to start. So, and
cool.
I'll probably be on, I don't know, a number of episodes here. You'll see me.
Well, I can't wait. And I know he can't wait. He goes see, it's the only show besides sports that he really goes and looks for. That and Oak Island. So,
got it. Yeah, that first.
He loves that. He's been watching it since it started, and I'm like, the only person that knows is Kevin Burns because he has passed, and I'm sure he has all the answers he was seeking. So, pretty cool guy. But, well, we're going to have to go, and I just want to make sure that, you know how much I appreciate you, and I do tremendously. And for everyone listening, we are such a nation divided. And I think that some of that is by design as much as not. But you don't have to buy into it. If you don't like the world you're living in, change it. Be the friend that you would love to have. I fail in that sometimes, but not on purpose. I let myself think I'm too busy. Well, you're not too busy to check on a friend, especially in this day and time. It's tough for some people, tougher for some people. Be the spouse that you would like to have, the parent that you wish you had had, whatever role that you're experiencing, whatever life moment you're experiencing, just be the best you can be. Sometimes it's hard, but it's always worth it. So, we will see you back next week, same cat time, same cat channel, and I'll have Claire and William Henry with us. William is on Ancient Aliens and all these other shows. He is a really neat guy. Claire is neat too. So, I'll see you then. Until then, have a great week and you be that change in the world. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.